What is up, everybody? Welcome to Recruiting is No Joke. Now, for many of you who've been following this podcast for a while, you will know that I usually host these episodes live on LinkedIn. I've done it like that since 2019, and that's because my biggest audience has historically been on LinkedIn. But in the past couple of years, I've also developed followings on TikTok, Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, Snapchat, Spotlight, YouTube, and recently Instagram. And so I wanted to have this podcast recorded and have sessions with my guests recorded and just wanted to change the feel of the podcast. I think we're at like episode 57. So this isn't a new podcast, it's an existing podcast, but we've gone through a little bit of a rebrand. And I really want to focus this podcast on just what's going on in the world of hiring, in the job market, in the world of talent, because there's so much going on. And a lot of you guys know if you're a job seeker, it's a really tough market. So I want to be able to get guests on from some of the biggest companies that you know that are actually leading talent teams that are going to be able to bring you a ton of value, that are going to be able to answer questions. But I also want to react to takes that we see on LinkedIn, CEO takes that I don't agree with and maybe my guests don't agree with. I want to talk about new technology within the space, like how is AI impacting the recruitment space? And then I want to be able to talk about everything that I'm seeing trending on the world of social media as it relates to hiring, recruitment, and the job search. So each week I'm going to have a guest on, and it's not going to be just question and answer. We're not going to find out about how they got into recruitment necessarily. We're literally going to be reacting to what is going on in the world, what I'm seeing, and just reacting and getting their take on it and their insight. So I think it's going to be super exciting. Thank you to everybody that has been a past guest. We've had lots of really great guests, and some of those I'm going to get them on again. So if you want to be a guest on this podcast as well, you can let me know. Just DM me on LinkedIn and we could talk about getting you on as a guest. And then if you want to see any of those past episodes, if you go to iTunes, Spotify, you can see those past episodes. And I think if you want to see the video as well, you can just go to LinkedIn. Super excited for this new season of the podcast. I've probably been off now for about 3 or 4 months just trying to figure this out. Also in that time I had a new baby, also grew a following of over 100,000 on Instagram in literally 2 months. That's a whole nother thing. So I figured what I could do for this solo episode is I'm going to look at a couple of my videos recently that have gone viral. And I just want to talk about it, give some of my take, unpack those videos a little bit more, and then go through those comments as well. Look, this first one here, I'm going to share. Let's take a look at this video right here. This is a video that had, I think this video ended up having maybe 1.5 million views. And here's what the text says for anyone who's listening. It says, genuinely tweaking after 7 applications and no interviews landed. The job market in 2024 is brutal. And then we're going to take a look at some of these comments, and I'm going to give my thoughts on this. But yeah, this video ended up having 96,000 likes, and it's probably going to be more by the time this airs, probably 100,000 plus likes. And then also got some really good comments. So the first comment on here that I see this comment itself got 8,000 likes, says, but yet employers are urgently hiring or hiring multiple positions. So basically saying like, yeah, it's a brutal market, but everybody seems to be hiring. Someone else said, after just 7, bro, more like 700. That comment got about 3,800 likes. Someone else said, applied for 23 jobs on Indeed, not one call or message. There's jobs everywhere, but under $20, bro can't live before under 25. That was by McLoving for anyone who can't see this. And then we got everybody just submits applications and expects the job to do the rest. You got to go in after, show your face, and let them know you submitted the application and you mean. So as you can see, like whenever you do one of these videos, if it goes viral, man, you get some really, really funny comments. But I did this video too was strategic because one of the things, if you actually follow my content, I talk about is in this job market, you have to apply to probably hundreds of jobs before you even hear anything back. And you can't just apply to random jobs. They've got to be jobs that you're a fit for. And we all know hiring managers are looking for people who have prior experience. They're looking for people who have industry experience. They're not looking to train people up. And so it was a little bit of clickbait where I said, after applying to 7 applications, and I think that first commenter said, or one of those commenters said, after just 7, bro, more like 700. So I completely agree with that. And if you guys are on the job market right now, look, the people who got hit the hardest, I would say, are actually recruiters and talent acquisition. I get probably 100 messages a day from recruiters saying, hey, I'm really having a tough time on the job market. So if you're a recruiter out there and you're struggling on a job market, you are definitely not alone. And then someone said, look into the trades. There's work everywhere. I can come in for a helper around 22, 24 an hour. And look, I don't have anything against the trades, but obviously, look, if you've been making 100, 120, 140,000 a year at a remote job, it's a bit of a stretch to go into a job and make 22, 24 an hour. And so that's why I think we see, like, when we even look at like the unemployed rate, yeah, there's low unemployment, but there's plenty of people who aren't working that have just given up looking for a new job. And when we look at how many job openings there are, look, everywhere around me, all the fast food restaurants are hiring. There's plenty of jobs out there, but it doesn't mean that people want those jobs. And I think that's the piece that people seem to forget. So let me know what you think. Like, send me a DM on this one. But my advice to people on the job market right now is you got to apply to a lot of jobs, and they have to be the right jobs. So let's stay in that. I'm gonna look at this next video here. Let's take a look. The next video, a similar video as well. So this video, you can see it got 250 likes. This one is what they call a stitch. So I'm gonna let it play. Put the volume on. And stitch is basically where it's like someone else's comment, and then it's me on the back end. So you ready? So let's play this again. All right, so like I said, that one was from TikTok, and like, for you guys who didn't see that, like that last scene, it was just like my face, and I'm just talking about how brutal the job market is, and then that first portion was just like a talking head as well, with the person saying that they had applied to 150 jobs and they haven't heard anything back. So you could see there's a common thread here. At least with this person, they applied to 150 jobs, which, even in my opinion, 150 jobs since November, I don't actually think that's enough. But they did say that they're hearing back and they're getting the final interview. And I think, look, if you're on the job market list, you can do everything right now. You can do the right amount of applications. You can get through to interviews. You can get through to the final stages and still not get the job. So what I say is, what you need to do is you actually need to take a look at like what could be breaking down. So let's say if you're not getting a call back and you're applying to lots of jobs, it's probably something to do with your resume, or maybe the jobs you're applying to, you're not actually a fit for, you're not qualified for. But then if you see, hey, it's dropping off at the screening call each time, okay, then figure out what you're saying in that screening call. If you get into the offer stage, I think you're pretty much doing everything right. And it could come down to something like maybe you're just asking for too much money. You can try and get some feedback. It's still going to be tough, in my opinion. But let's take a look here too. I want to see some of these comments on that video. So I'm going to share again. Let's take a look. Well, let's go to some of these comments. 50, got to pump those numbers up. These are rookie numbers. She's getting through the final interview. That's what I said. But everywhere is short staff, doesn't make sense. Again, look, guys, like if you're a marketing director, you're not just going to go and get a job. Whether or not you do, some people do, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, obviously, if you've got financial obligations, but not everybody's going to do that. This person said, I don't even get rejected. They don't bother with me. No replies, not alone. Job search and interview fatigue. And they expect so much experience too. We're short-staffed, then hire people. Let's not forget the amount of scams for remote work. Companies are doing it on purpose. Guys, you just have to go through like some of these comments. And people are even saying they got rejected from like cashier positions. I started applying through company websites instead of Indeed, and it made a huge difference. That's great. Blue collar work is always hiring. And I said, really, I don't see too many concrete jobs in the wintertime. Got to love a little bit of banter. And then if you really scroll down, like people start getting super toxic as well. So, look, guys, the moral of this is, like, if you're on a job search, it is just a tough road. And so what I recommend is, again, got to apply to a lot of jobs. You got to be networking. You You got to make sure that your resume is up to date as well. And then you also got to try some of the tools that are out there. A couple of tools that I'm recommending right now. Number one, Teal, I do think is valuable. That's TEAL. They're like resume building. They've got some AI features too, which will match you to different jobs. There's also a couple of auto apply tool, automatic apply tools. One that I recommend is Massive. What Massive will do is like you fill out one application and then you filter through and you pick all your preferences for jobs, and it will show you jobs that match your preferences, everything from like experience level to skill sets to keywords to salary. And then it will line you up in the job queue, a bunch of these jobs, and then you just hit apply and you don't have to fill out an application each time. It's a time-saving tool. But with all of these tools, you got to remember, like if you heavily rely on them and you're not focused on what does my resume look like? Like, am I looking at the job description and just talking about my roles and responsibilities, or am I talking about my KPIs, my numbers, my accomplishments? As a recruiter, what I look at is I look at what job did you have? How long did you have it for? What does that last 5 to 10 years of experience look like? And then I'm going to look at what have you accomplished in those jobs, right? If you're in sales, were you smashing quota? What was your quota? What clients were you working with? Were you going after enterprise clients or SMB clients, right? If you're in construction, what type of buildings were you building? What types of buildings were you renovating? Were you residential or commercial? If you're in accounting, how big was the general ledger that you managed? How many people were on your team? What was your role? So every single role is going to have impact, and you're going to have sense of accomplishments. And what you're trying to do is on your resume, you're trying to show what you've accomplished and the value that you're going to bring in that position at that company. And then you also want to give them like some idea of the scope and the scale, because I think sometimes people think that, oh, I worked in big tech, everybody's going to want to hire me. I've spoken to lots of hiring managers in the past that haven't wanted people from big tech. They've wanted people from startup companies. They've wanted people who have scaled in an organization, or they've worked at a startup and worn lots of different hats. So I would say putting scope on your resume is a good thing, right? And if you work for a company that's not recognizable, that no one, if you're not working at Apple, Meta, or McDonald's, a company that everybody recognizes, then say how big the company is in the industry that you're in. Again, you're giving some scope, because sometimes people want people who've worked at massive global organizations and have that experience. Other times they want people who've worked at smaller companies. So give that scope as well so the recruiter can see it. And again, I meet with lots and lots of people, help them out with their resume. And one of the biggest things I see is people just tend to talk about their responsibilities versus their accomplishments. But look, what I'm hearing too, I'll go to this post. I'm just going to look it up here real quick. There was a post by a guy called, a friend of mine. He called me out on Twitter because I shared the video that I did. But this is a friend of mine who owns recruiter.com. He just acquired recruiter.com, which is an RPO recruitment process outsource. Basically just like they give you temporary recruiters on demand. And here is what he said. And I don't always agree with all of Jesse's takes, but he's a good guy. So let me see what it's. Okay, so he said, this was, what are we on now? We're on March 7th. So this was like right at the beginning of March. This is what Jesse said. And I'm going to share the screen again so you guys can see it. And then I'll read it for anyone who is listening. And again, Jesse is a good friend. He's working with a lot of particularly tech companies, big tech companies. So this is what Jesse said. He said, for the first time in a long time, I'm happy to report the floodgates of hiring requests have finally reopened. Recruiting is about to be competitive again. The companies that have been retaining staff are the companies I'd make note of and strive to work at. Big trends. Number one, higher company-wide attrition. Number two, candidates consistently getting multiple job offers in Q1. We've even started to see a normalization of declined offers headed from 1% to 10%. Still mostly RTR, return to office, and the jobs are based in the major metros, San Francisco, New York City, Seattle, Miami, and LA. Number four, the past few years, leaving your job, you'd get a 10% raise versus staying and getting a 3% raise. In 2024, we've seen the opposite, where people get laid off, taking new jobs have received significantly less compensation. I expect this trend to start to reverse in Q3. That's good news if he's right. And then he said, number five, a lot of companies are asking for people to do more with less. I think we're seeing this all across the board, by the way, which is a whole different episode, which we'll get into, I'm sure. But with the initial efficiency layoffs and cost cutting now being over, we'll start to see a shift to growth. And here it is. My prediction is that growth will be done using AI automation and offshoring or nearshoring support functions. Agree, disagree, seeing different trends, have questions, comment below. And this post got 313 likes. I don't know why I didn't like it. 51 comments, 23 reposts. And then I posted about this on TikTok as well. I did a green screen post, which if you guys are familiar with that, I basically took a screenshot of that post and then put commentary on it. And I think that video got like 150,000 views on TikTok and maybe the same on Instagram. So according to Jesse, things are going to be looking up. This guy's having a lot of these high-level strategic conversations. My biggest takeaway from that is, look, we're in a job market that's going to swing. The recruitment market's going to swing. It was super hot in 2021, super cold in 2022 and beyond. But look, we've almost been in this stretch. I started seeing the dominoes fall in July 2022. That's when a lot of the contract recruiting gigs that I was working on fell off. And that's when I started to see a decline in just business demand for recruitment services, like agency recruitment services, specifically in tech and the startup world. Interest rates were going up, investments were down. And now we've continued to see a lot of layoffs because I think AI and automation has been really huge, but we've also still been recovering from a lot of overhiring. But according to Jesse, that is going to start to end, and we're going to start to switch into growth mode. My prediction is it's an election year, so there's a lot of uncertainty still, but I think once we start to hit that election and we know which way things are going to go, not to get political, but once we know which way things are going to go, that is when we are going to see the market start to open up either way. So again, let me know what you think. If you're listening to this, if you're listening to this episode, feel free to DM me and just say like, podcast, this is what I'm seeing. And I do polls as well. Like I did a poll on LinkedIn a few days ago. Let me just see if I can find the poll. And I do this poll like, I don't know, I would say I do this poll like every few weeks. And this is for job seekers. And really the poll is just all about like whether or not people are hiring. And I did this all through last year and loved it. And I've continued to do it this year. So let me pull up this poll and we can take a look. Here it is. Share my screen again. Let's see, share screen. All right. So here is the poll. It says the first 2 months of 2024 flew by, mainly because I had a baby, but I'm hearing a lot of mixed messages on the job market. So I thought I would do this poll and then share to my 220,000 on TikTok, 121,000 on Instagram. Always got to flex those numbers. But it says, if you're a recruiter hiring manager, please comment with open jobs. And so we had, is your company hiring? 1,400 respondents, almost 50,000 impressions, and 63% of people are saying they are hiring, and 37% say no. Now, what I'll tell you about this is I did this last year, and it was like at the start of the year, it was always 70-30. And then we went down to, it was like almost like 57%, 63%. So this is up, right? We're seeing more and more companies hiring, but go let me know. Go let me know what you think on this poll, and pay attention to this too, because I do this poll like every 2 weeks. So if you are looking for a job, you can click down here. And for any of you guys who can't see, we've got Laura here. It says, I'm hiring a physician in Indiana. I'm hiring a role for a full desk recruiting background. So lots of people posting their jobs, but that's what I'm seeing. So I'm gonna do this poll every 2 weeks, if not like every month, depending on whether or not I can remember to do it. But then what I do is I share that on Instagram. I share that on TikTok as well, just so job seekers can connect with recruiters as well. And I know for a fact, because I talk to people who have actually landed interviews and jobs from that poll, which is super cool. So I'm going to call this session off here. We've been here about 17 minutes. So if you've reached the end of this podcast, I do really appreciate you guys. Would love to hear your thoughts on that content that was posted on TikTok and Instagram. Like I said, I'm actually going to be at HR Transform next week. I'm actually going to be speaking about video content. So that'll be March 11th through the 14th. Super excited about that. But after that, we are going to be doing this podcast every single week. I'm going to be getting top guests who have followings on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on TikTok. We're going to get top talent leaders, people who are actually in the field that know what they're talking about. And we're going to be running through some of my top content and reacting to it, other top content that I'm seeing and reacting to it. So it should be a ton of fun. So I appreciate all of you guys tuning in. And again, if you want to subscribe to the show and you want to see some of those past episodes, you can do that. You can go to my LinkedIn and see all of the live streams. You can also go to Apple and iTunes. So I will see you guys later. Appreciate it. Appreciate you guys hanging in here for the solo show. And we will talk to you soon. Take care, guys.